Good morning, everybody. I want to start you off today by looking at a map over the last 3 days of maximum estimated hail size. So we're looking here at the storm complexes that came out of parts of Colorado, Kansas, Nebraska. They came into New Mexico, Texas, Oklahoma, and stretched throughout the lower Mississippi River Valley into the southeast, many of which produced hail that was bigger than 2 to 3 inches. In fact, if you kind of look for this color range, you'd then be able to start to identify some of these very, very large hail events. Now remember, large hail, it's not what you need to destroy a crop. I mean, it does a lot of damage, but the small stuff, if it's spreading over a large area, can do that as well. I'm sure a lot of you saw some of the images of some of the huge hail that was in around Dallas, or some of the hail that was in Colorado yesterday, just flooding the place out. In fact, speaking of flooding, take a look at this. This is the last 72 hours of total accumulated precip. We've got places from Colorado, just stretching right along this corridor here, that just in the last 3 days have picked up better than 3 inches, many places way up here over 6. And there are some locations in the Western Plains that in the last month have already topped all of last year's precipitation. Just incredible to see the differences. The other thing to take note of here is this deep low that's still spinning today over Michigan and some of the rain that it has spread. We're going to watch this corridor right in through here to get more before this moves into New England, adding more rain, hitting one of the driest spots in North America over the last 30 plus days. But just thinking about what's driven all the incredibly wet weather we've seen in this corridor, I want to show you something here. This is a windrow that I made at Iowa State's main website. Love this website. And I made this first windrows for last year, time period May 20th of 2022 through June 12th, 2022. So this is a similar, stretch of days that we just experienced, but a year ago. Now, the most dominant wind directions were coming out of almost the south. It's kind of really a south-southeast, or at times coming out of the north-northeast. All right. Now, if you get a wind that comes out of the south-southeast, this is a dry wind. You don't have moisture loaded in this. And out of the north-northeast, well, considering the issues we saw last spring in the northern plains, this was going to be coming off of western, like South Dakota, western Nebraska. This is going to come out of the eastern parts of Wyoming. So this is not going to be loaded with moisture either. Now, this was a year ago. This is this year. Now, again, you notice something. A year ago, this year. Now, what are we looking at here? Well, this, coming out of the southwest, is every time we had a good shortwave that kind of curled through. But what was going on here was that we were at times able to draw winds, especially out of the east and southeast. And that is where the upslope flow comes. That's where the storms are triggered on the mountains. This brings in moisture. So it's just a change in direction. Have we had a lot of northerly winds? No, not at all. So I thought I'd point that out because we kept talking about this anomalously eastern flow at the end of May and the beginning here of June, and I just wanted to show you it's in the data as well. Now from here, I got a couple of questions yesterday about some of the cold temperatures that we've seen as of late. Certainly here in northern Minnesota, Wisconsin, the UP, getting up into Ontario, we've seen some colder air, but this is a map where I just looked for any location in the RTMA data. That's an hourly averaged temperature gridded data set, okay, where they were below 40 Fahrenheit, all right? Because some of the reports I was hearing were in this part of Iowa, some folks reporting that they had some frost damage. And while I cannot find it in this data set, and I didn't find it in the surface observations from what's called ASOS, that's our National Weather Service's Automated Surface Observing System, there were just pictures that were floating around, and I was curious. So I just want to let you know, this corner of Iowa, then getting into Wisconsin here, between the 9th and 12th, we had some colder overnight lows. And is it possible, even though the lowest temperature I saw here in Iowa was 40, is it possible that in a low-lying area, way far away from one of the nearest weather stations, the temperatures dipped? It is possible. So that's extremely late in coming, and I need to just learn more about this to see if this event, how many acres it did possibly hit. I just saw a couple of pictures of a couple of ears of corn that looked like they had some damage to them and probably didn't ruin the crop. But anyways, the low that was responsible for that is still spinning right here today. It's a donut hole, perfect one over Michigan. But as you know, what we're keeping a close eye on is everything upstream of that, including this piece of the jet stream, this ridge that's building out of Texas to the north, the flow that's coming over the top of that, and when this low exits, what it's going to do in terms of opening up things to deliver more precipitation to some of our driest parts of the country. So this morning as the sun was rising here, and we are approaching the solstice, which means this angle is at about at its maximum. you can see that upper level low spinning over Michigan. And most of Michigan is going to sit too tight in the middle of this stacked low, which means no lift in the atmosphere, which is why there's no clouds. It's around the periphery that we have the lift. And by the way, this is smoke right in through here. You can still see from last night the storms right in through here that have been going on in the Red River Valley of the South. And we're going to watch again this area over the next couple of days. So what I want to do is go show you the most recent radar data here. So this is an animation over the last 12 hours or so. And you can see they've got two lows to keep an eye on. One that's spinning here over the Intermountain West, and then the low that's over Michigan. And here's the storms firing last night. Look at these monsters down here in Texas. You can see the storms rolling down here in the southeast. And then here's the low. And the question is, are we going to be able to deliver another round of rain coming through Wisconsin, Northern Illinois, Indiana, Ohio before this moves into New England? Again, hitting some of the driest acres in the United States in the last 30 plus days. So our high-res models are going to give us a good idea about this. So here's 7 a.m. this morning. We just play this on through. We see the two different areas. Lingering boundary down here and the storm sitting on that boundary today. And then this low providing a lot of scattered showers under some cooler air spinning around that center of circulation in Michigan. Now, could the NAM be a little too aggressive on the southward extent? Possible. But there is a round of rain coming into this area this afternoon and this evening. And we need this. This area needs this desperately. Then that moves into New England. Now, while that's also going on, just watch. This whole corridor keeps getting lit up with storms right in through here. And look up here. This is the shortwave. It's right there, okay? That's moving into British Columbia and Alberta, and we hope that that one is going to put out the fires, all right? Also brings a round of storms here by Wednesday morning into Montana, and a front that slides through there. See that front? And this gets us out here at least to Thursday, kind of looking at what the precipitation patterns are going to be. Quickly on the severe weather, this is today's severe weather outlook on the 13th. Here's the 14th. They've now increased this to an enhanced risk for a broad area here, Louisiana, parts of Arkansas, but Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia. And then as you get into the day here on the 15th, we're going to watch the central plains of the U.S. possibly have a risk of severe storms. Okay, latest update from the WPC. This is their 7-day 0Z run, 7-day total precipitation outlook. And again, this is just incredible. We need every ounce of this. There will be flooding down here in places, flash flooding. Some places could easily pick up, look at the color bar, 5 to 6 inches of rainfall because of the repeated storm action. But we start to see this quarter opening up at the end of the 7-day time period to storm. So I'm going to show you why that's the case. So let's go to the upper level height pattern from the European model. Here's the trough we see dipping in later this week that comes through parts of British Columbia and Alberta delivering rain. We see the deep trough exiting east. We're going to watch the ridge that's over Mexico and Texas really gain a foothold right here. And this is the shortwave trough that's going to sneak through this weekend. We're going to watch this one move right through the heart of the Corn Belt here, hopefully delivering some rain. Following that, a much deeper trough dives into the west. And this is the setup that we're really going to keep an eye on. Because next Tuesday into Wednesday, my biggest concern is how far to the east do the storms that eject out of this trough make it. They're going to be through this whole area. But you notice there's a ridge axis right here. So that means in this region where I'm drawing these arrows kind of running north-south, there's going to be at about 700 millibars, so a few thousand feet above our heads, there's going to be there's going to be a ridge of heat. And that's going to produce a statically stable layer in the atmosphere, which the storms may have a difficult time kind of punching through. So we could see a lot of storms here, but they're going to have a difficult time getting over toward the Mississippi Valley until we can really just shove this pattern forward. So that may not happen again until we get out there around the 23rd or 24th. The good news is we just see the pattern opening up to better flow, and this is a setup for this area to see a lot of thunderstorm activity pressing toward the end of this month. So just want to let you know, we're going to look at the operational European model. And the reason is that over the last several days, really 2.5 weeks, the European model shown in blue here has had about a 3 to 5% advantage over the GFS at times in terms of its skill. So I'm going to show you the timing of these events, and then we'll go look at both models. So here we watch the low curling up. We see the storms right here. This is all the same scenario we just mentioned a moment ago. There's the low coming into British Columbia and Alberta. Now here we are toward Wednesday. Again, more storms just ripping through this area. By Friday, this is where I'm watching into Saturday, the shortwave eject. And you see the European model producing these storms, but not a massive organized system being resolved in the models just yet. And can they really push into Iowa and Illinois and out of Missouri, or do they tend to stay on the southern side of this down in the Mid-South? That's the big question we're going to be asking later. So that rolls through, but this pattern's not done. Look at this. This is next Tuesday. Look at the low curling up here over the Tennessee Valley, the Appalachian Mountains, the Carolinas up to Virginia. And that low is going to sit there and spin its way through and give better chances for rain across an area that desperately needs it. Now, I want to show you, oops, let's go here. This is the ECMWF 7-day, and this is the GFS. So you can see similar patterns, but quite different in specific areas. So the models are not too far off, but when we compare the 7-day forecast from the ECMWF to the European, you can see this. And by the way, if you go to my forecasting tools, I show you the actual amounts for your locations. Go check that out. But now we go over to the probability maps. So where is it wettest? Clearly down through this area into New England with the first low. Again here in the western and high plains, and out here into British Columbia and Alberta. Montana, same scenario you've had for a while. Greatest chance of over 2 inches. This is my big flooding threat area. This is my flash flooding threat area. All right. What about week 2? Well, we continue to monitor the models and how they evolve. They are keeping the drier conditions in and around the Great Lakes right in through here. But as the ridge builds into Texas, you've seen me do this quite a bit. That's where we're picking up on wetter weather. It's kind of running right between the two that we're expecting to see the storms kind of really fire on top of this ridge. From there, let's talk about temperatures. So still another cold one here around the Great Lakes underneath that upper level low. The storms and cloud cover here, but look at the heat in Texas. So we're going to go from 79 in Amarillo to, down by San Antonio, Austin, 103, 106. Major temperature contrast there. This is Wednesday, getting into Thursday. A lot of 90s in the Corn Belt here. Going into Friday, still cool in California through the weekend. This is Saturday into Sunday and Monday. Now, this is the sector opening up that I think is going to be prompted by that ridge that's going to give us some good thunderstorm action. So we're going to keep a close eye on this going forward. 7-day GDD map, just pause it and take a closer look if you'd like here, but this is also in the report I produce daily that goes out online there. And I also wanted to show you the temperature change. So as we just play this forward, can you see where the trough is in the west? There's not much that's changed about this. It's expected to do something like that. So here's the heat pushing in, but kind of running over the top into another trough that's over the east. No Bermuda high to just keep pumping this out. So we just play out there to the end of this forecast time frame, which gets us out there to the 28th of June, and you just keep getting this. And that's our flow pattern as we go forward. So looking at all of that, this would be the GDD anomaly map. What will be changing about this map is this area. Well, let me redraw that. I think a lot of this area is going to pick up some major GDDs. Expect to stay below here and there. This region goes back over warm as well, so we're going to continue to add to the anomalies in that spot. So speaking of temperatures, I want to show you a couple last things here. We've had a lot of discussion this week about the competing factors that are showing up well in the ocean temperatures. But these ocean temperatures in the Atlantic, I just want to let you know something. They are right now well over their max on average at the heart of the hurricane season. We're currently sitting here. And the question is, how much warmer will this continue to be? Because as you know, this is influencing the Atlantic in terms of the Atlantic Meridional mode being very positive. It's displaced the Bermuda high. And this is affecting global weather patterns. For example, look at the storms throughout Europe continue to be forecast here. Hyperlocal but heavy rainfall from southern Europe all the way over to Turkey. We're drier though in Ukraine, Belarus, this part of Russia. You look over in Asia, extremely wet south of the Yangtze River, but drier up in the Manchurian Plain and the North China Plain, which are right in through here. Australia continues to get some late season wet weather, which is uncommon this time of year, especially as an El Nino develops, to continue to see this. Also given the incredibly strong winds that are rolling across Australia. And then into South America, again, very, very wet conditions. This may at some point start to become problematic for southern Brazil as they attempt to harvest. Whereas you get down here into, Uruguay, parts of Paraguay, Rio Grande do Sul, the Paraná River Basin, very, very dry. But that area is also very cold, and there is the chances for patchy frost to be getting into pockets of southern Brazil. While it's not being resolved well in the models, low-lying areas could hit those frosty temperatures. Europe, hot, stormy. You take a look at northern parts of Asia here, of China, this is hot and dry. So we've got a few international things to be keeping an eye on here. Again, I appreciate your extra time in the morning. We try to cover so much in these videos, and hopefully you find it informative and useful, and we'll talk again tomorrow. Thanks.